What's up everyone? Welcome or welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. I am the Marketing Nomad. Alrighty, kind of wanted to share something that's been heavy on my mind for the last few months, to be very honest with you, but didn't necessarily think that I was ready to talk about it, just that I was in the phase. Now that I am sort of coming out of it, I feel ready to talk about it. So before we get into this phase and my takeaways from this phase, this is going to be a little bit more on the spiritual side. Yeah, I just wanted to share it with you because it's a pretty big part of my business and my life as well. And it's a pretty big lesson that I'm learning. So something that is true for me is that my business, it started because of a very traumatic situation for me. All right. And so the foundation, or at least some parts of the foundation of my business, was built on trauma. It was built on pain. It was built on anger. It was built on frustration. And of course, you can read all about it in my book, 0 to 4 Figures. I'm not going to go too much into detail right now about that. But if you're interested, it's there. It's all there in my book, 0 to 4 Figures. But the truth is, parts of my business's foundation was built on trauma. And it took me about 3 years of healing for me to even have some semblance of success with respect to my business. And then my business started growing. But remember, the foundation of my business was built on trauma. It was built on pain. It was built on anger. There was a lot of confusion with respect to how I was showing up for my business. Like, the reason why, or at least part of the reason why I was showing up for my business was, there was a lot of pain and I needed to get that out of me. I needed to do something with my life. And that was my primary motivation. But as I healed with respect to my personal journey, my self-love and my healing journey, and with respect to my business as well, the reasons why I started this business was no longer holding up for me. There was a part of me that wanted to prove to people who were my naysayers, that I could do whatever it is that I set my heart on. Those reasons no longer existed for me once I had reached a point of my threshold of healing. And so, even though there was success building in my business, like it was building, like slow and steady success, I was beginning to see it. And this was in particularly last year. The motivation behind me showing up for my business started to get a bit hazy for me. And something that I feel was divine intervention for me, you can call it divine power. Some people use the G word. Some people call it the universe, whichever it is, source, whichever it is. I intend to mean divine power, whichever it is that you align with. I really feel like there was divine intervention for me because everything that I built on trauma, on pain, anger, using anger as the motivation, frustration, or wanting to prove a point, everything that I had built based on those feelings, they crumbled. They crumbled at the end of November, and it continued to crumble all the way up until Feb of this year. And that was a big chunk of my business. And so for me to reach that peak of success and then to have it all crumble, it was painful. It was really painful, but at the same time, because, I'm an energy worker, I'm a spiritual worker as well, I kind of understood what was going on at this point in time. Everything that was built based on misalignment was washing away so that I could be given an opportunity to rebuild those parts of my business in alignment. And so something that I've been going through from November, December, Jan, February of this year was identifying those parts of my business that crumbled because the foundation of it was weak, it was misaligned, and re-evaluating those aspects of my business, redoing the foundation for those aspects of my business. And that went quite deep. It went to an extent where I had to even ask myself, why am I creating this business? What is my primary motivation? At one point, it was pain. It was to probably escape from the pain. It was, that anger that was built in me, that needed some kind of outlet. But you've reached a point of healing on your journey. So those reasons no longer align. So what is your primary motivation? Why are you showing up for this business? Why are you even functioning with respect to this business? What is the reason behind it? So I had to evaluate every single aspect of my business that I had built on trauma and pain, because all of that washed away. And I truly feel blessed that not only did it wash away, because that would not have sustained for a longer period of time, I feel truly blessed because not only was the misalignment taken away, I was given an opportunity to rebuild it in alignment. And I feel like when something is meant for you to build, to sustain, to create, and perhaps the first time around you build it based on ego, based on pain, based on misalignment, based on trauma, I do believe that if you are meant to create it, it will help you reach a certain point, divine power, whatever it is that you feel aligned to. Your team, they will help you reach a certain point where you have some kind of footing, but whatever was built on misalignment washes away. And because you still have a little bit of that footing, there is an opportunity given to you to recreate parts of those aspects of your business which was built in misalignment, to rebuild it in alignment. Do it in an aligned way. Do it right, And sometimes if you're not meant to create it, that opportunity is not given to you. It will crumble, it will misalign, and everything washes away. And we've seen many, many cases like that. But the reason why I feel lucky and I feel extremely, incredibly blessed is because I was given that footing. Even though it was a little bit shaky and I was panicking and I was very, very anxious about that footing, I was still given an opportunity to rebuild parts of my business that I had built because of misalignment, like pain, trauma, ego, so on and so forth. And it was a good hard look that I had to take with respect to these aspects of my business and question myself and get answers from this more healed version of me. And so that has been a very spiritually eye-opening process for me. It's also been a very deep sense of, I guess I would say, inner work that I had to literally start digging out in order to recreate those parts of my business. But like I said, I feel very blessed that I was given the opportunity to rebuild those parts of my business. I finally feel like I'm coming out of it, but there's still a little ways to go. I'm still yet to stabilize in that energy, but I felt called to share this with you today. I thought maybe I'll talk about this maybe 2 or 3 months down the line, but I don't know, I kind of got the pull today to talk about it. So I always follow what I feel deeply in my heart and my soul. So here I am, and my intuition, of course. I wanted to share this with you because sometimes, and if you are someone who has that feeling within you that you're meant to create something in this lifetime, you're meant for something more in this lifetime, this is for you. That sometimes you are given the first opportunity and you may not necessarily create it in alignment. It might be out of pain, out of anger, out of frustration, out of ego as well. And sometimes that is taken away from you. That foundation that you've built is taken away from you so that you can rebuild it in alignment as a more healed version of yourself, or as a more aligned version of yourself. And that is painful, because whatever you've built so far, it crumbles and it's taken away from you. But in those moments, if you recognize that, okay, this is actually an opportunity for me to align my business, align something that I'm meant to create so that it can sustain on peace, on balance, on centered energy rather than energy that is a lot more misaligned, like for example trauma, pain. It's all shaky energy, right? It might be fierce and powerful when you begin with, but that does not hold good over time. Peace does, balance does, centered energy does, right? So it's painful, but luckily because of the energy work that I do, I was able to recognize this pretty early on. Like November end, it started crumbling. I was beginning to feel that chaos and that misalignment, and I knew, like right off the bat, I knew that this was a spiritual awakening of sorts. And December, I still went through it, but I was a bit distracted in December, just that, you know, it was the end of the year, I had other things going on. But January, I took the full blow of it. January, I was like, oh, okay, something's going off over here. I need to understand what is going on, because parts of my business are crumbling. Like some parts of it are steady, but some parts of it are really crumbling. So what is happening right now? And then in February, I took a couple of days off as like my mental health days. And that was when it actually hit me what was going on. Like that was when I was able to get the full picture. And I was like, okay, let's take a good hard look as what has crumbled and what has sustained through this entire period. And when I kind of started looking at what had crumbled, I understood that what had crumbled was basically what I had built based on trauma, pain, anger, resentment, ego. And it was natural that it crumbled because I had already stepped into a more healed version of me. And so it no longer aligned with me. The version of me, the frequency that I was unlocking. Like I said, this is going to be a little bit more spiritual, but this is just who I am. And I can't like move away from talking about these things because it's just very intrinsically, you know, connected to how I think and how I operate in my life and my business as well. And so the way that I thought about this was, well, I've stepped into a more healed version of me and I can feel it within me, and I've stabilized in that energy. I started stepping into this version of me probably early last year. And so enough number of months had kind of passed where I'd stabilized in this frequency. So when you stabilize in a frequency, first within you, internal frequency, only then it starts getting visible outside of you. It starts stabilizing in your external reality. And so sometimes everything that you had built with the unhealed version of you, or the more unhealed version of you, it starts crumbling because that no longer matches the frequency of what you are internally. So understanding this concept was important for me, and I probably talk about this in another video, but that's when I started to realize that, okay, the frequency that I'm unlocking, it seems like everything's breaking down, but actually I'm accessing a higher frequency, a more healed version of me, a more healed frequency. So whatever has been built on this unhealed frequency, that's going away. So I'm being given an opportunity right now to create something with the frequency that I am accessing at this point in time, which is a more healed frequency of me, and I had stabilized in that frequency. So I took a couple of days off in February, like complete 0 videos. I think you probably know that as well, and we talked about this in another video as well, but no videos, nothing, no work. I just sat with my diary, my journal, and I just started writing everything that was coming through. And so then I started analyzing, okay, well, what broke down? And I started to see a pattern emerging in the things that had broken down. It was built based on anger, ego, pain, trauma. And I was like, okay, so now that I've accessed this more healed version of me, whatever I'd built on misalignment is being washed away. So now let's convert that into alignment. So I started asking myself, like, if the primary motivation of why I started this business was, you know, perhaps because I needed an outlet for the pain that I was going through. Now that pain no longer exists within me. It's healed, right? So now what is my primary motivation of doing this business? Why am I doing this? Why am I showing up every day? And the interesting thing is I should have seen this coming. The interesting thing is I should have seen this coming because somewhere around October, November, I started to feel quite a bit disconnected from my business, very, very disconnected. Actually, it started to grow exponentially, and I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. What am I doing? Why am I even showing up for my business? It's not that the revenue wasn't coming in, it was coming in, but I was feeling very, very disconnected to it. And then it all came together in February, end of February, that, hey, the reason why you were feeling disconnected is because you're no longer connecting to a version of you that built this business based on pain and trauma and anger. And so you need to rewire those questions. You need to rewire the answers for those questions. And so I started asking myself, like, okay, well, now, like, you built your business based on trauma and pain at one point, but what is your motivation now? So I had to really dig deep. I had to really kind of rewire my thought process and understand what this more healed version of me wanted and how I would like to operate. And I feel very, very blessed that I was given the opportunity to build back up those pieces of my business that had crumbled because of misalignment. Sometimes you're not given that opportunity, but I was given that opportunity, and I feel very, very grateful for it. So I wanted to share this with you because I'm slowly coming out of it. I'm now stabilizing in that energy in my external reality. So that energy is stabilized within me, but my external reality had to align with that frequency, but there was a crumbling process to that. I allowed it to crumble. I didn't even hold on to it. I just allowed it to crumble, which again signifies growth and my understanding of energy, that if it has to crumble, it will crumble. You cannot hold on to those pieces. Big lesson that I'd learned during my engineering days. But that also, we'll talk about it in another video. That's like a deep topic, again, another one. And so I allowed it to crumble, and then I started rebuilding. I was grateful that I had enough footing in my business to give me the space and the time that I needed to stabilize in that frequency. So my external reality right now is still in the process of stabilizing, but I'm feeling confident that it is going to come out of it. And so the reasons why I'm showing up today for my business and why I'm showing up with respect to these videos as well is a lot different than it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm seeing the change within me. I'm seeing the change in my business as well. It feels a lot more long-term. It feels a lot more stable because I've shifted the reasons why I'm showing up for my business. I've shifted a lot of things on the behind the scenes, like on the back end, that are more in alignment today with a more healed version of myself. And even if you want to talk about it like from an energy perspective, what's built on trauma, on pain, on ego, on resentment, on anger, it may be powerful, like that energy to begin with might be powerful, but it does lose momentum over time. It does. As you heal, as you grow, it tends to lose momentum over time. And so those things don't sustain long term. Even with respect to whatever you see out there that's created, what has crumbled, often you'll recognize that it was built out of something that couldn't sustain long term. And our job, is to allow that crumbling to happen because it was misalignment to begin with. May have helped to a certain degree, yes, absolutely, but beyond a certain point, it is misalignment, so it will crumble. So our job is to allow that crumbling to happen. And if we're lucky, we get the opportunity to rebuild. And if we're not lucky, then we accept the crumbling and we stay open to building something different, building something that is in more alignment with who we are at that point in time. So that's another message that I want to give. Even if I didn't have a stable footing and I wasn't given this opportunity to rebuild what was broken or what was misaligned in my business, I wouldn't say broken, it was misaligned in my business. I'm pretty sure, being the creator that I am, that is genuinely my energy, I would have started working towards creating something different, but from the version of myself that I was at that point in time, a more healed version, and keeping in mind things that can sustain long term, building in alignment, focusing on building in alignment. So yeah, I feel incredibly blessed. I wanted to share that with you. The energy is stabilizing on my end, within me and externally as well. So I felt ready to share this with you, that this does happen. This absolutely does happen. It doesn't have to be a business. It could be something that you're creating for yourself in your personal life, in your relationships as well. What you could have built in misalignment, over time it does crumble. But that also means you get to create something in alignment in that place. Either it could be the same parts of it or new parts of it. That really depends on your situation, depends on maybe even what has shifted within you. Maybe you no longer want what you once built, and that's okay as well, right? So it really depends on you. It also depends on the opportunity that's given. Also depends really on what you are meant to create, and you'll know it within you. All right, so I wanted to share that with you. It's a little bit deep. This particular episode's a little bit deep. It's a little bit, or not a little bit, very, very spiritually inclined, focusing on energy and understanding alignment and misalignment. But what is built in alignment sustains until you reach the next stage of growth, all right? And what is built in misalignment crumbles. It does crumble beyond a certain point because it cannot sustain. So what is built in alignment will sustain as long as you are in alignment with that energy. But the moment you step into the next stage of growth, again, what was aligned at one point in time becomes misalignment. And so that's where it crumbles, or you have to rewire it to align with the energy and frequency that you are in for the next stage of growth. And this is a cycle that keeps repeating. So what was once alignment, and to be very honest with you, the start of my business at that point in time, I'm not going to say that it was misaligned, or it felt like alignment at that point in time, and it was what I needed in order to get that momentum starting, in order to transmute the pain that I was feeling within me into something that is outside of me. Otherwise, I don't think that I would have been able to make it out of that phase. So at that point in time, it was alignment, but this is a more healed version of me. And so whatever I had built during that phase, it is no longer aligned to the version of me that is today. So I was given the opportunity to rebuild it in alignment with the version of me that I am today, right? So that's also one more thing. But things built out of anger, resentment, the revenge, or hatred, panic, anxious energy, what else? Did I say anger? I said anger, right? Yeah, these things built out of this, all right? A jealousy, insecurity. While it may give you the initial momentum, it doesn't hold. It does not hold. It crumbles after a period of time, just because your foundation's not aligned, all right? Even if you haven't reached a more healed version of yourself, it already starts to crumble, because that's energy that cannot sustain over time. All right, so just wanted to share that with you. So it's a little bit like, maybe when you're building something, when you're creating something, be a little bit careful about the energy behind it, the intention behind it. Maybe in some cases you need that pain and that trauma and that anger. Maybe in some cases you do, all right? But just know that at some point you'll have to shift out of it. At some point you will have to. Either you will be made to, or you can make that conscious decision to shift out of it. I was made to. I didn't even recognize. I really didn't even recognize, but I was made to shift out of it. And luckily I was given an opportunity to realign to the version of myself that I am today. But yeah, just this is like big life lessons that I'm learning, actually, that you need to be careful about what you're creating, like the energy behind what you're creating, because some of them will not sustain long term, and you need to be careful about that. So that's also one more lesson that I'm learning right now. I know that this entire video is a bit cryptic as well, but I know that to whomever it is meant to reach, it will align, and you will know that this video is meant for you, because it will resonate, and you will feel it in the depth of your soul. And I'm sure of that. I'm so confident of that. And if it doesn't at this point in time, maybe at some point it will, and you'll be like, oh, this is what she was talking about. Like, it will click at some point. So I trust that whoever is meant to hear this from me in the way that I've said it, it will align and it will make sense to whoever it is meant to. All right, so that's it. If this video helped you in some way or opened your mind in some way or helped you think about your situation differently, definitely do give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because that tells you every single time I do upload a YouTube video. Take care, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye-bye.